She became the most hated woman in America, death threats, police threatening to kill her, all kinds of horrible things. But the ruling held all sorts of things like that. That the teaching of evolution in the schools is unconstitutional.
Creationism.
Thank you. I mixed those up in my mind. I did that just to catch you to see if you're really listening. Teaching of creationism or intelligent design in the public schools is unconstitutional. Can't do that today. The same kind of people aren't on the court. The rulings have been, there are 9 justices on the U.S. Supreme Court, and the rulings have been quite recently 5-4. There's a new justice named Justice Kagin, not related. It's spelled K-A-G-A-N, I'm K-A-G-I-N. My father was a Presbyterian minister, not a rabbi. But anyhow, that's what's happening. And history is going to shift one way or the other. We're either going to win this and we're not. There's nothing you can do to compromise on whether or not you teach evolution or not. There's no compromise on whether abortion be done or not, or in other things that are religious views. There's no compromise on gay marriage. You either do it or you don't. So how do you decide? What do you do? And be assured that laws are laws only by the consent of the people who make them. They make these things up. Recently, and I've been stumping on this quite a bit of late, there has been a movement to file some very dangerous lawsuits. Now, litigation and lawsuits are the last big gun in the battery of things that we can do. Things we can do that are effective are letters to the editor, being involved in demonstrations. Don't let one lonely little atheist say, why aren't you out demonstrating on the National Day of Prayer down in the courthouse lawn? Let people know everybody doesn't agree with this nonsense. The lawsuit, as I said, creates binding precedent that judges in future cases are required to follow. The principle is called stare decisis, stand on the decisions. And they must, unless they make a major reversal, follow those precedents. What is happening is little by little, just in little bitty chunks, the fundamentals are winning cases and whittling down the wall of separation between church and state. And I haven't said this, and people have told me I should not, because I should never be, say an unkind thing to a fellow atheist. But the Reverend Dr. Michael Newdow has been doing a great deal of harm, I hate to say. He has lost a whole string of cases that have created some deadly, awful precedent. He filed a lawsuit on using one nation under God, on money and various other things. Well, one nation under God is the national motto. In God we trust is the national motto. Right, thank you. See, Carol was learning something. I told her to catch me if I was wrong. And I don't have very good notes, and it's not very good light, but that's right, one nation under God. How can you argue against that if it's the national motto? We've had some stunning victories, very tenuous. American Atheists case against the Utah crosses. A judge held that the Utah crosses, 12-foot metal crosses memorializing former fallen officers on the freeway on public lands was perfectly okay. Are you listening? Because the cross is not a Christian symbol. I'm so glad he said that, because had he not, we might not have reversed it to the 10th Circuit, but we did reverse it. And the status of the case right now is American Atheist 1, Utah crosses 0, but Utah crosses have applied for with a certiorari to the U.S. Supreme Court, and that could be granted if it is aware. Just as they are using, by they I mean the bad guys, the fundamentals, the enemy, nothing personal, it's just a rhetoric. If they can put up in God we trust because of the national motto, well, if the cross isn't a Christian symbol, They can put that up in the schools too, can't they? Sure, if it's not a Christian symbol, why not? Well, we ought to be having a little bonfire, little crosses, and see how symbolic. Absolute nonsense. The levels and the stretching to which they will go is bizarre. There's a guy named William Barton who's running around rewriting.
David Barton.
David Barton. I'm really missing tonight. I'll write all this up. David Barton, that's correct. Is rewriting history. What did you say, Blair? What's that smart?
Does he need a drink?
I made that. I quit drinking 26 years ago. Okay. Another disastrous case, and this came about before I became National Legal Director. The Detroit churches case has been used against us lots of times. Most recently, it was used against us in the Homeland Security case. You remember that? In the Detroit case, they meaning the government, the people with money, were wanting to tidy up the parade route for the Super Bowl. Things on the route, and they gave grants to do facelifts on the buildings. A few of those buildings were churches. So they decided we will sue in federal court, and have been saying, no, don't do that, you're going to lose. But they did anyway, and sure enough, the judge granted a summary judgment saying this is nonsense, that this has nothing to do with religion, it's just tidying up the front of the buildings. With Edwin saying, please don't appeal, they took it to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. Remember, Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee are in the Sixth Circuit? I listened to the argument that was made in Cincinnati, and I knew we had lost. And sure enough, the Sixth Circuit said the Detroit facelifts on the buildings are just fine. This has been used in every sort of twisted perversion. You know, President Madison saw this coming. He wrote, be very careful, because people will do little cases that then are taken as precedent for later cases. The man was a prophet. He's absolutely a genius. President Grant said, tax the churches. We'll get to that in a minute. Taxing the church. That's something we ought to do. What are we going to do about all this? The Detroit case was a disaster. I am pleased to say that since I've been National Legal Director of American Atheists, we have a 100% win record. This is because we don't take nonsense cases. If there's bad facts make bad law, and if there's any facts that aren't just quite right, pass on it when you get the right facts to where no judge in the world could say it's constitutional. That's the way I feel that our Homeland Security case is. It is blatantly and clearly unconstitutional, and we're waiting for the Court of Appeals to tell us that's so. There is a situation. Many people have criticized this policy, and you can find this policy, if you want to put that other thing, on Google, the Legal Philosophy of American Atheists, which can be found either using Google or go to the American Atheists website. Yes?
We have it as a file on our meetup.com.
We do?
Yes.
Thank you.
So anyone here can download it through our meetup site.
Yeah, and this explains the position I am taking on this, that bad cases make bad law, that, you know, I'm sorry, we just can't do this. Sorry, it's too dangerous because it can make bad law for the whole country. Let's away with something better. See, if there's no ruling on it, it can maybe go either way, but if there's a ruling, they're going to do it. Right? The Heim case is another case that was lost on standing that should not have been brought. Standing is the ability or the right to bring a case into a court. And this is the new attack that is being made on constitutional challenges to clearly unconstitutional laws, is that you do not have standing. The Hyde case involves a situation where the president has a slush fund used for faith-based programs and can dole money out of.